going to go ahead and install our upper ball joint, located right here in our upper control arm. Using a 22mm socket, let's go ahead and remove our lug nuts. Let's go ahead and remove our wheel and set it aside. I'm going to start by removing our upper cotter pin here on the lower portion of our ball joint. Use a pry tool. You could try using a pair of cutting dikes and use them as leverage. So you grab the cotter pin and just pry it out. Now this is not a stock ball joint here, so I'm going to try a couple tools here with our pliers and our pry tool. Pop that out. Let's go ahead and loosen this nut. 21mm socket, we're going to go ahead and loosen our nut here. Now we're not going to remove this. We want to go ahead and loosen it. When we release the upper control arm from the knuckle, it'll kind of pop up a little bit here. So we want to keep the nut on here and use it as a capture nut. So you can spin this off till half the threads of the upper ball joint are still in the nut. You put your pinky between there so you have a general idea how much thread you have available. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our hammer and we're going to strike this part of our knuckle. This should release our upper ball joint from the knuckle, and our nut will be used as a capture nut and stop this when this pops apart. Let's give this a few good whacks. You can see that it's now separated. We're going to go ahead and use our jack underneath, support our suspension here. Maybe put a strap on this to hold it as well, and then we'll go ahead and loosen this nut the rest of the way and remove it. Now I'm going to use a strap here. What we want to do is anchor our knuckle here inboard, because once we separate this here, it's going to want to pull outboard, and we don't want to put any extra tension on our flex hose here for our brakes, our ABS, or our CV axle. So we're going to go ahead and attach this now. It's going to pop it into a frame port right there and over here, and that'll keep that knuckle inboard. Let's go ahead and remove this upper nut here. Now our upper control arm is not an original upper control arm. We do want to go ahead and replace our upper ball joint. This is designed different from the original style ball joint. So what we're going to do is try and work on getting our rubber boot and our lower collar separated, and then we'll go ahead and push the ball joint up and out of our upper control arm. I'm going to clean off around here. Let's go ahead and use our tool to go ahead and press our ball joint up and out of the upper control arm. Now we went ahead to try and remove our upper ball joint here with it in the vehicle. We couldn't fit our tool in here to properly do it. So what we're going to do is remove the two upper bolts holding our upper control arm to our chassis. In order to do so, we need to start by removing this ground strap to our frame using a 10mm socket. Let's go ahead and remove this nut here. Pull this ground strap off, and I'm just going to throw this nut back on here. Just throw it on a couple threads just so we don't lose that. Using our 18mm socket, we want to go ahead and loosen and remove this upper bolt. And then on the inside, we're using a 21 millimeter wrench on the nut side. Let's go ahead and loosen this bolt. Because our ratchet was just not strong enough to do that. With that loose, we're going to switch over to our ratchet. Once we get this bolt out with the nut, we'll go ahead and repeat for the back bolt. Now I'll remove this back bolt here. There was a tab on the back here. This is like a locking tab or stability tab that is going to go on the inside of the frame. So when we tighten this will hit the inside of the frame and we can just tighten the bolt. We won't have to hold on to this. Go ahead and remove the bolt. Go ahead and remove your control arm. I'm gonna go ahead and try and press this ball joint down. At least get it started. I'm gonna go ahead and install our new upper ball joint. Now there's a groove here for a lock ring to be installed. Now on the factory control arm, you want to go ahead and install this here. On our particular application, it's not going to require it. So let's go ahead and press this in. I'm going to go ahead and get our ball joint tool set up here. I'm going to go ahead and get this pressed in. Now that our ball joint is completely seated into our upper control arm, let's go ahead and remove our tool. Now at this point, what we're probably going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a little bit of grease to our ball joint area here. We'll go ahead and press our boot back on, and we'll go ahead and install our control arm. We're going to line up our upper control arm. Get that installed into the frame. We got our bolt here. We'll put a little bit of anti-seize compound on the threads. Get that lined up. Let's go ahead and get our nut with the tab installed. That tab goes in on the back side of our frame. So as we tighten the bolt here, that tab will keep that nut from spinning. Now that we have this caught, let's go ahead and install our forward bolt. with both of those bolts installed, we're just gonna go ahead and not snug them down, but we wanna take up all the thread space on here. Let's go ahead and do the same for the back bolt. I'm just holding that tab here just to hold it up against the frame while I snug down the other bolts here. All right, we're good there. The control arm is still loose, but yet the bolts themselves are good. Let's go ahead and get our upper control arm dropped down and into place. We can go ahead and get our upper nut installed. We're going to use our 22 millimeter socket. We're going to tighten down our upper ball joint nut here. Let's go ahead and torque our upper ball joint to 40 foot-pounds. Now, in order to complete the torquing of our upper control arm here, what you want to do is get the vehicle to its natural ride height. You don't want to torque the pivot bolts with it sag down, because when you put the wheel on the vehicle and you lower it down, it's going to apply some pre-torsion to the bushings and can twist them and cause some issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a jack underneath our front suspension. We're going to go ahead and raise up our suspension. You can see it starting to compress. And we're going to keep doing this until the vehicle just starts to come off of our lift, or in your case, you may be using jack stands. Keep on compressing this until that vehicle just comes off. And there we have it. Let's go ahead and torque down those pivot bolts to 130 foot-pounds. Repeat for the back bolt. Once you're torqued, you can go ahead and lower the suspension back down. And remove your jack. Let's go ahead and install our ground wire right here. Get our strap put on. Push that in. I'll go ahead and get that nut installed. Get that nut started a few threads, and then we'll tighten that down. Let's go install your wheel. Let's get a lug nut started. Let's go ahead and snug these lug nuts down. Let's get torque down our lug nuts to 130 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.